Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so by now, if you celebrate Christmas, you have opened your gifts, you've drunk your eggnog, you're in that post-Christmas, pre-New Year's glow, if you do Christmas, that is. Otherwise, maybe you just have time off, which is great, or maybe you're just looking forward to New Year's.
Hey, we have a song.
We have a song. Oh,
that
yeah.
just got played a few days ago.
That's true. On John Solomon's 25-hour holiday marathon on WPRB.
Yeah.
So hopefully you enjoyed that song. If you have not heard it, it is called...
What is it called? Oh,
You wrote it.
yeah. Lacey Chabert.
Lacey Chabert, about the Queen of Christmas.
Yes.
Well, the Queen of Hallmark Christmas movies, anyway.
She had 12 of them. She may have 13 by now. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Dennis does genuinely enjoy those silly things.
Yeah.
So do I. I mean, look, I'm not putting this on Dennis. I'm the one who got him into it. It
Basically,
is.
you'd be baking cookies and you would be kind of sitting, waiting for stuff to get done.
Uh-huh.
And you had it on in the background.
Yep.
And we both would sit and make fun of it. And eventually we just kept watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a dissimilar trajectory to... I listened to a podcast that I think it's now called It's Christmas Town, which is these two guys just watching, David Roth and Jeb Lund. I started off listening to this podcast when it was actually more like a politics podcast, but the guy got really depressed and was just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, so let's watch Hallmark movies. And it just became about Hallmark movies and other stuff. Yes, we genuinely do enjoy those movies. Not uncritically,
No.
because they are incredibly formulaic, and you can argue they are small c conservative, etc. But they're enjoyable. So yes, we have a song now called Lacey Chabert, and if you go into Bandcamp, Death Elf, DETHELF,
Yep.
you'll find a bunch of our songs that we've written over the past several years, all Christmas themed somehow. And that is our latest. So thank you to John for putting it on his show, as he always does.
Yeah.
And yeah, go check that out. So speaking of the holidays, we have a movie that we're going to watch today that kind of falls, I've been told, in that week between Christmas and New Year's. And I've never seen this movie, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. That's not always true, but in this case, it is true. But I am kind of aware of it. And the movie we're going to watch is Donner.
Rambo 2. Oh,
No.
okay.
Rambo 2. You know, at some point we're actually going to do Rambo 2. You keep bringing it up. So this movie was suggested to us by a listener of the show, Todd Gruel. I hope you pronounced your name right. Forgive me if I didn't. I'm from Philadelphia. You're lucky I'm getting anything out. He suggested that we cover this movie, and as I've never actually sat and watched it, I thought, hey, why not? I know we meant to do this like a year ago, actually, and that's when I got COVID and couldn't record. So yeah, here we are. So I know of this movie. I've just never sat and watched it. I know that it is a Barry Levinson film. I think it's a pretty early-ish. So as far as I know, it is set in Baltimore. It, I think, has Kevin Bacon, maybe Mickey Rourke, and maybe Steve Guttenberg, although I'm not really sure on that last one. I don't know where I got that from.
Stonecutters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's set in maybe in the 50s, maybe the early 60s. I don't know. I definitely feel like it's some sort of like a period piece. But and that's it. That's kind of the extent. I think it's about like dudes being guys
At a diner?
at a diner
Yeah.
where they go and hang out.
Huh.
As somebody who loves diners, I am very sad at how they've kind of disappeared from a lot of places. The area we live in, Philadelphia and outside Philadelphia, there used to be so many diners. Oh my God.
Has New Jersey lost a lot? Or
New Jersey has lost some diners.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
even
sad.
there. You know, I mean, that is a state which is basically known for diners.
Yeah.
Famously, the last scene of The Sopranos is in a diner.
Their thing.
It is their thing. And Baltimore is not very dissimilar to Philadelphia, even in their accent, actually. I miss going to a diner at like 3 a.m. and just ordering like scrapple and eggs.
I miss those milkshakes where they gave you like the metal cup.
Yeah, those were good.
So you'd have like basically 2 milkshakes.
Look, that wasn't good for you.
It was great for me.
But yeah, I miss going to diners. It's not like they don't exist at all, but they're not 24 hours anymore. There's like one 24-hour diner in our area, and it's in Conshohocken. It's Andy's Diner, and they're good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
We ate there, I don't know.
We had a great waitress.
Oh, she was really cool. She was great. And long may they reign. But yeah, we've really run out of diners in this area. It's a real bummer. In Philadelphia, some like the Melrose Diner's gone. They tore it down.
That's not right.
That's insane. Last Tuesday it was, I guess, or Tuesday a week ago, or whatever. We were downtown. We went to a Mexican place, or we tried to get into a Mexican place. Turned out I made the reservation for the wrong day, and we didn't get to eat there. But I walked in and I went, oh my God, this was the Midtown too.
Yeah.
I used to eat here all the time. Oh, I was so sad. That's the thing. Philadelphia used to have 4 diners called the Midtown Diner. And
Was there for a Midtown 1?
That's the thing. Because I used to eat at the Midtown 2 a lot. I would eat at the Midtown 3 a lot. I've eaten at the Midtown 4. I have no idea where Midtown 1 was.
Good.
I was on a mission to find the Midtown 1. I wasn't going to Google it. I was just going to hopefully stumble upon it. And I never did. And now they're all gone.
Maybe it's underneath City Hall. Yeah, only politicians and
They were the only ones on.
other Freemasons were allowed.
You know what? I bet it was in that concourse under City Hall that there's like that one that's supposed to go between them and like Wanamaker's and somewhere else. It's like all these underground passageways that are all been blocked off since like 9/11.
Yeah.
And that's where the Midtown 1 was.
Yeah. Love Triangle?
Maybe. I mean, so as far as I know, these are like young guys. Like, I don't know if they're supposed to be high school, college, or just like young men living. I don't know. So sure, I could see like a love triangle between 2 guys and a girl, or 2 girls and a guy, or something like that. Why not?
Do we meet the owner of the diner?
I'm sure we meet somebody. Yeah. I don't know if it's like going to be an Al's situation or Arnold or Happy Days.
There's a great diner in the Northeast called Amelia's Love-In Diner, LUV-IN. I think it's -INN for some reason, and it was not an inn. Anyway, you walk in, or at least in the 90s, you would walk in, and there was the owner just perched on like the last bar stool as you would walk in. It wasn't really a bar, but it was a bar stool.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And it was everything was like kind of 50s decorated and everything, and he would just kind of turn his seat towards you, just kind of look you up and down, and then turn back. There was no welcoming or anything. He's like, yeah. He had kind of a Danny DeVito look about him too.
Oh, that's so perfect. Yeah. Oh my God. What have we lost in this society?
I don't know if he was Millie. I think it was MIL-LEE too.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I just assumed Millie was a woman.
Yeah.
Like MILLIE.
Yeah, I don't know. This could be my memory just playing tricks on me too. But I just remember things.
You mean this whole story could be wrong?
Everything could be wrong.
Oh no.
But I just remember everything was misspelled. It seemed like in a good way.
All right, so yeah.
Body count.
Body count. No, I don't think it's going to be that kind of movie.
Right.
I think somebody will come close or something will happen.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of tension.
Choke on a bone.
Yeah, sure. The fries are a little too greasy and they keel over.
Does Mickey Rourke, if he's in there, does he punch something?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let there be a fight. I want to see that. So this is, I guess, the second Barry Levinson film we're doing for the podcast.
What was the first?
The Natural.
Oh, yeah.
And The Natural was good.
Yeah,
The Natural,
it was.
It very sort of old-fashioned filmmaking. And, yeah, Levinson kind of strikes me as a guy who does just meat and potatoes movies, old-fashioned kind of stuff, which is good. And I also find it amusing because the other famous Baltimore filmmaker is John Waters, who is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Baltimore has a kind of, yin and yang, Janus face of filmmaking. I think that's wonderful. All right, shall we go and watch this movie?
Yeah.
Mr. Blue, when you say you love me, Mr. Blue, Then prove it by going out on the slide, proving your love isn't true. Call me Mr. Blue.
I guess I should count myself lucky that you didn't try to give me a Flyers quiz before we got married, because I'd be single right now, and so would you.
All right, I asked you this before, but who scored the most goals for the Flyers? And how many?
Is it Bobby Clark? I don't know.
It's Reggie Leach.
Who's Reggie Leach?
He was on the LCB line with Bobby Clark.
What the?
And Bill Barber.
I guess that's the LCB, huh?
Yeah.
In question?
Uh-huh.
How am I going to know this? Come
All right.
on.
How many goals?
I don't know.
I think it was 61. I'm actually not sure.
Are we getting divorced now or something?
I'll give you a month to study.
No. I'll tell you right now, I am not studying any of this. I will never retain. You know what? Once you said LCB, I realized, we have had this conversation, and I will never remember any of the details. Ever. I can promise you. And I like the Flyers. I watch sports with you. I don't retain information. The idea of putting somebody through a quiz and getting no, I can tell you how a game is played, but I don't know stats. I sometimes remember who people are, but I don't know numbers. If you throw a number at me, you may as well just be writing in demiotic script. I have no idea what any of that means. I will never retain any of it. No.
Tim Kerr holds the NHL record for power play goals in a season. How many?
What's a power play? No, I know what a power play is. No, but I don't. Who? Tim Curry? I didn't know he
Tim
played.
Kerr.
I didn't know he played hockey. That's kind of cool. I'd love to see him on the ice.
He looked like a Viking. You would have loved him.
No. I've seen Tim Curry. He does not look like a Viking. You know, he's got black hair and it's curly. And why are you looking at me like this?
You have not seen Tim Kerr. I'm gonna find a picture.
I don't care. I truly don't care.
Number 12.
Anyway, this movie, and and of course the joke is he doesn't actually go through with it.
Yeah.
She does not quite pass his test, and he's like, the wedding's off, but then he goes through with it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's a stupid idea. And I think deep down he knows this is a stupid idea brought out of his own fear.
But it apparently was based on cousins of
Barry Levinson?
Yeah.
God, why would anybody, if any guy, anybody says to you, whoever that person is, and I'm going to give you this quiz, and if you can't pass it, we're not staying together. You run. You don't want to be with this person. Now, in the character's defense, they're young, they're kind of dumb, and they don't go through with it.
Right.
But that is the ultimate deal breaker. The ultimate non-violent deal breaker of, no, we're not doing this. This is not what a relationship is. The thing is, the movie knows that.
Yeah.
That is kind of the point of the film.
What kind of amazes me about this movie is just how low stakes it constantly is. There's a lot of things that scare people, and then it just kind of backs off on all of them.
Well, and that's what I think is actually really good about this film. It is about normal fears and relationships, especially at that age in life. Okay, so one thing that strikes me is, you say they have these fears and then they back off of them, because that's what a lot of life is.
Yeah.
You do just you're terrified of
and especially
marriage.
at that age,
Yes.
it's just like everything is the end of the world. I'm going to die because I did this thing, and then it just doesn't happen.
And how often is that the reality?
Yeah.
And actually, what I like about this movie is, not unlike Watching the Dead, this is about what in my mind I call small lives. So much cinema, especially now, is big stories about big things. And either it's, cape movies where it's the end of the world, Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet and all that, or it's, Oppenheimer's invented the nuclear bomb, and everything is about the world is going to end if X happens or if X doesn't happen or whatever. And it's or it's huge, heavy stories like Killers of the Flower Moon, which is about genocide.
Or whatever Asteroid City is about.
Well, no, see, this is actually, Asteroid City is kind of I think it's a very complex film, and that I understand when people don't like it or it doesn't really work for them, but it worked for me on all cylinders. But because I think that's actually Wes Anderson commenting on his own art. But so much film is about high stakes. And the whole point of this film is it's not high stakes. This is just life. This is just people living a life. And I think about that a lot. So much of art these days is about these giant things. We don't have small stories. We get them on television sometimes, but even then, when you get into what they call like the golden age of TV that has, since passed, very little of it was focused on small lives. And really the only one that leaps to mind, leaving aside The Wire, because The Wire is also kind of about big things because it really is about America and institutions and stuff like that. Really, the only one that dealt with small lives is Mad Men. And I think that's why I like it more than the rest, even though, I love The Sopranos. It's brilliant. It's amazing. But that's also kind of big things, and there's a lot of death, and there's, that's also, it's operatic in its way, right?
And Better Call Saul is like backing off of the big thing.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I think Better Call Saul might be better than Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it is, even though I liked Breaking Bad a lot. I watched all of it. But, again, it's that sort of, it's not small lives, even though technically it kind of is, but it isn't. This is small lives.
Yeah, a little bit like Outland.
Yeah, oh.
I know no one would ever make that connection.
No,
but
no.
In terms of this, like as far as like small lives and small,
I don't think anybody would ever connect the science fiction film Outland with living small lives, and yet I do understand what you're trying to say with
like
that.
comparatively with other science fiction films, like there's like I can't think of any other film that has lower stakes,
right?
Than just one ranger's life.
But see,
and
here,
a few other people.
You keep saying low stakes, and on the one hand, I know what you mean by that because I said it myself. This is not about the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so on that level, it is low stakes. On the other hand, this is about people's lives.
Yeah.
And my life is incredibly high stakes for me, right? What these guys are all going through, they are high stakes for them.
Right.
Right. But I like that we actually get to just see people, being normal human beings. And, there's nothing like, okay, last night we watched It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And again, that is about kind of somebody just having a regular small life, but it is couched within, does he kill himself or not?
Yeah.
Right? This movie doesn't do anything like that. This is just about normal people coming of age. And I really appreciate that.
But what I like about it is that it introduces all these ways where things could go that way.
Yeah.
There's a pregnancy, there's a
gambling debt.
There's a gambling debt, there's a guy who is like a firecracker. It looks like he's going to, blow people off. Like,
Are you talking about Kevin Bacon?
yeah.
Yeah.
His character feels dangerous the entire time. And in the end, it's like,
Eventually, he'll either straighten up or, he'll just implode. But
like I called him Ziggy Sabatka.
Yeah.
Another famous Baltimore hothead.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned The Wire. I didn't even think about the fact that it still is both Baltimore. I said earlier, yeah, it is basically just guys being dudes. And the thing is, like, each of these guys, I've met this guy. I know this guy. I have avoided this guy. But I like, and in one case, I've been like, oh God, I think I might be that guy. Oh, that one sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Daniel Stern's character in this. Oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts on him.
You know what? He's a little bit like, what's his name in American Graffiti? Hooper, whatever it is.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Dreyfuss's character in American Graffiti is sweeter than this guy, though.
Well, yeah, but he's also not married and he's younger.
Yeah, true.
I was thinking about these two movies, and I feel like, here's these directors of a certain age, and they were all came of age in the 50s.
Or early 60s.
Yeah. But, like, they're looking back on this time, when there was only white guys. Like for them, it was the best time in the world because it's like only white guys matter. So.
There is a little bit of that, yeah.
And
also these guys are all like upper middle class.
Yeah. So Barry Levinson and George Lucas, they look back, they kind of condense it down to the one thing that really spoke to them back then. For George Lucas, it was hot rods.
Yeah.
And for Barry Levinson, it was diners.
But what I find interesting is it's nostalgic, but I don't think it's necessarily sentimental.
Yeah, for both movies. They're just focused on this one thing that just really entranced them, thinking about everything around it that was like, just blah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's
Just life.
It is, and it is just life. It's interesting you bring up American Graffiti because that film is 10 years older than this film.
Yeah.
So it's closer in time to when it was what it's depicting, and yet it still has there was definitely this changing moment that it's like building up to. And this movie is set in Christmas week of 1959. So the 60s are going to begin. And it's all about looking back and knowing that there's going to be this changeover. And these guys are at the end of their own childhood. They're in kind of this interesting generation, between, they were way too young, that they were barely alive for the war. You got to figure they were all small children when we were in the Second World War. And they were probably, then they were definitely too young really to go to Korea either. They're going to be too old really to go to Vietnam. They'd be in their mid-20s by the time there'd be a draft or anything, and older than that really. So they're in this kind of curious in-between place actually between that older generation who actually went to war. They don't have the kind of same cultural cachet, I guess you might say, or markers that people think about the boomers, or they think about the war generation and stuff. They're in that kind of. They're more like, I guess, your parents,
They're
your mothers.
They're my dad. Yeah. That's my mom.
Yeah, like your mom. They're actually a little bit older than my mother.
Exactly, my mom.
Yeah.
Because they have this whole conversation in the diner about, so who's cooler? Is it Johnny Mathis or is it Frank Sinatra? That means something to them.
Yeah.
And then Mickey Rourke comes by and says Elvis.
Yeah.
And which is obviously an odd thing to say for an older guy,
right?
In 1959, because it's no, that's for the kids.
Yeah, and yet he's right.
But my mom was the same way. She did not. She hated Elvis. She loved Chubby Checker.
Yeah, I mean, your mom was just too old for rock and roll.
Yeah, and plus she married an older guy.
Yeah,
who he for him it was just jazz.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a whole thing about jazz in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's short, but yeah, I do find the music in this is interesting because there's a lot of that what we now think of as 50s rock and roll stuff, but it is that transition into the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all it's very much more of the R&B side of things. It's like a generation or I hate the concept of generations. And I've talked about that before because generations are kind of fake.
So generations are fake, but I think there is something to this year by year thing.
Yeah.
This is kind of as far back as our memory goes, where, being into Frank Sinatra or Elvis Presley means something.
Right.
And
yeah.
I'm sure there was stuff like that before, like Bing Crosby or Frank Sinatra and before then.
Yeah.
But for us, this is kind of as far back as at least my memory can go. That later it's punk versus disco versus whatever, and these divisions, and they always seem to be just a few years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're very short periods of time that people are talking about, but it becomes very important in these huge signifiers.
Like when I was 18 in 1989, and for that year it was metal was the thing. Punk was just nowhere. At least for my year, it felt like.
Really?
Yeah. Whereas people younger than me, way more related to punk.
That's so funny to me because I'm 8 years younger than you, and so
Yeah.
I come at that a completely different point
Exactly.
of view. So should we talk a little bit about?
Oh yeah, there's a movie.
There is a movie. Let's not just go down this because here's the thing. It's real easy to start talking about nostalgia.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But what I like is this film is not. It is set in the past and it is nostalgic a little bit, but it's not really about that at all.
Yeah.
He picked 1959 because it's things are going to change when you hit 1960, and that's kind of a trope in American culture because Kennedy's going to become president, and then you have the 60s. It is set in the past, but it's not about how great the past was at all.
No.
It really is just about these guys' lives and, them coming to adulthood, full adulthood. And I get the feeling it's just set in 1959 just because, that was his own youth.
Yeah.
Right?
He was born 1942.
Right. So he's
So
a
it
little
was-
bit younger, but not
Yeah.
by much.
Mhm.
Because these guys are all college age or a little bit after college.
Yeah.
Tim Daly's character is still in college. Some of the other guys, they're not in school anymore. Or in the case of Mickey Rourke's character, he is a hairdresser by day, but he's going to law school at night.
Or is he?
I think we're supposed to.
But he's dropping out, though, right? I assume.
I couldn't tell if that would. No, I don't think he was. I don't know. Maybe there was a line I missed. Because here's the thing: there's a lot of dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
And I like the way the dialogue works in this because there's something very natural about a lot of it. And there's a lot of crosstalk. I mean, we're not talking like Robert Altman or anything, but there is something very natural.
A little Robert Altman-y, though.
There's a lot of just like floating over conversations in this movie, and just I mean, there's certainly times where like certain things are spotlighted, but especially in the diner, there's just a lot of bits of a conversation here, snippets of another conversation, just different, and it's great because it's just drawing out the characters and like who they are, and how they relate to each other, and there's something very wonderfully natural about the way these guys are just hanging out and talking to each other and arguing about sandwiches and stuff. It feels so much like conversations that I've been in or seen. I think he really got a bunch of performances from these guys.
And what he did, he filmed everything except the diner sequences until he saved those for the end so that they had more of a rapport. And then it pretty much let him go. Like it was mostly improv, which some actors were good at. Apparently Kevin Bacon wasn't. But they felt like that was great for his character because he would just kind of sit there and simmer or whatever he does.
That works really well.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, whereas like Paul Reiser, I think is really good.
And they all said Paul Reiser was like the master.
Yeah.
And you could tell he's like dominating the conversation.
And it works really well because it's interesting. He's part of the group, but he's not like necessarily the main guy. But so then him dominating specifically within the diner and in all those scenes, it actually works really well because he doesn't have like a big story in this. I think having him in there and kind of as an actor and having him play off of all these other guys, and because he's just that much better at it than them, it works really well. It
almost feels like the plot of the movie is like not the point of the movie.
No, not at all. This is not really about plot.
It's not that it's like I don't know, like a Richard Linklater, like I'm just going to have freeform movie.
No, it's not
but
that.
It almost feels like he wanted to do that, and he's like, well, I'll hang it on a plot.
Yeah, so there is like a series of things that do happen, right?
Like it's closer to Dazed and Confused than The Big Chill.
Oh God, yes.
Which was all about finding the answers and everybody having an arc and stuff.
Right. And it's not that people don't have an arc in this, but it definitely does feel a bit looser, and it is less obsessed with plot. I mean, it's a series of vignettes over a week and just sort of exploring these guys' characters. You've got Steve Guttenberg as Eddie Simmons, and the reason everybody comes together is because he's getting married on New Year's Eve. He's giving his fiance this long football quiz about the cults.
Was it like 140 questions?
Something stupid like that. And it's obvious like he's getting married. He's definitely afraid to get married, and he's a virgin.
Yeah.
And so I think this is all him trying to find a reason not to get married. The reason everybody's in town is for his wedding. Then his best man is played by Tim Daly. That's Billy Howard. And Billy's the guy he's going away to college, and this is him coming back. He's definitely got some real simmering issues. Yeah. There's a whole subplot of him tracking down guys he went to high school with and punching them out. And first of all, if you know who Tim Daly is and what he looks like, it's kind of funny to see him being the guy who's going around punching guys and not Mickey Rourke. You had brought up in the pre-show, like, does Mickey Rourke punch anybody? He's like, yeah.
No, I did not say that. I said, does he punch a thing? And he does punch a thing.
He does punch a thing. I thought you said, did he punch a person? And he does not, but he does punch a thing. He punches the steering wheel of his car.
Everything I wanted. That's what I want from him. I want him frustrated and punching things.
Well, you got it.
I did.
And, but no, instead we've got Tim Daly, of all people, punching people out.
Yeah.
Look, I watched a lot of Wings. I watched all of Wings. So it's very funny to watch him in this movie, which it's a different character. So he's in town. He also has kind of a relationship with this woman who works at the TV station.
Yeah.
And they were friends for a long time. And apparently, she went up to New York to visit him, I guess. And they end up sleeping together. And now she's pregnant. He is like, well, we'll get married. And she's like, I can't marry you. We're friends.
So he's like the opposite of Eddie.
Yeah. Steve Guttenberg. Yeah, he is. He is the exact opposite. And in part because, she has this line about how we can't get married because we're friends and you don't marry friends, which this film is kind of about who do you marry? What is it to be in love with somebody and why do you want to get married? Billy has the right idea. They were platonic friends, then they slept together. He's in love with her.
Yeah.
He loves being around this person. In the opposite direction, then you've got Daniel Stern's character, Shrivi. He's married, and he definitely does not like his wife, which sucks because, you know, it's Ellen Barkin, and he does not deserve her. And he's such a jerk to her. And the film gets into this. You know, he talks about how before they got married, their entire relationship was about trying to have sex and get away with having sex. And so they don't really know each other.
Right.
You know, and so when you have Billy knows, what is her name, Barbara? And, you know, they know each other. That's why he wants to be with her. You know, like the film is smart in the way it unfolds. Like, why be with a person? You want to be with a person because you like them. You like talking to them. You know, you and me, we talk all the time.
We do.
We even made a podcast of it.
I know. And yet you don't know who Reggie Leach is.
I don't know. I just keep picturing Cary Grant because he's Archie Leach. I have no idea who Reggie Leach is.
Not John Cleese, the other Archie Leach.
Yeah, that would have worked too. Daniel Stern's character, he's the one of the friends who's married, and he has a day job working in an appliance store. He's a salesman, basically. He just is not very nice to his wife because he's too young to be married. He, you know, it's like, and the film is right. Like, when you make sex about, you know, the focus of your relationship with it, it's all about that. And sex is like something where, you know, you kind of have to sneak around to get it. You're not really spending time together as just people and hanging out. And that's why you have a relationship when, you know, like, this was so common, right? I mean, this is why I think once they came up with no-fault divorce, like 50% of marriages broke up because these people shouldn't have been together. They just wanted to have sex, you know, and they got stuck in a marriage. And like, that's not how it should. That doesn't make sense.
But that's not what Boogie says.
What does Boogie say?
Boogie says, just stick it out. I don't stick it out. Maybe you should just stick it out.
Yeah. So Boogie is Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
And
good name for him, Boogie.
He's a terrible person, isn't he?
Pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty awful. I mean, and I don't even know if he gives the right advice here, you know, to stick it out. I don't think she should stick it out. I really think she should get the hell away from him. They kind of have a little bit of a thing at a moment that he kind of backs off from. And on the one hand, no, it's good that he does.
Boogie's a little bit like, what's his name in Uncut Gems?
Yeah, I guess he's a little bit like Adam Sandler.
In that he's just like
constantly making the wrong decision.
Yeah,
and like
just
harming
immediately.
Himself. Yeah. There's a lot of watching this movie and going, "Oh, you moron! Why are you doing this?"
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, he's so charming, and we've seen people like this before.
Oh yeah,
they're just so charming and so dumb in what they do.
Yep.
It's like,
so yeah, he's a hairdresser by day, and
Warren Beatty.
Actually, to kind of think about shampoo
Warren
for
Beatty.
a second.
Yeah.
And his roommate, I assume that's what it was. They were roommates.
Who?
Him and Fenwick, played by Kevin Bacon.
I was reading about it. I think they're actually brothers.
Are they brothers?
Yeah, remember that scene where he says, like, you know, like, I always wanted a brother, and then, that guy that's been sleeping in the bed across from me.
God, I
brother.
missed that line.
Yeah, it's just like a quick thing, but like I think they actually are brothers, and there's a lot of stuff that just kind of flies by in this movie.
No, they're not. They're not. They've got different last names on Wikipedia.
Well, I don't disagree.
I think he's a metaphorical brother.
I think I read a review that called them brothers, and maybe they are not. No,
I don't think they are. If I'm going by looking at their names. The last names of the characters. They are not brothers.
I think they made those names up.
Also, the fact that, Kevin Bacon, he does have a character who's a brother in this. And he...
Do we see him?
I think we do see him briefly. Remember when they go to jail?
Yeah.
And they get bailed out, and the one who doesn't get bailed out is Kevin Bacon. I think it's like his brother says, yeah, we're not going to bail him out or something like that.
Oh, okay.
There's something to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about Kevin Bacon for a minute.
Yeah.
We've known Fenwicks. Yeah. So he obviously comes from money.
Yeah.
And he's a self-destructive alcoholic.
Right.
But the thing is, he's not a terrible person per se. Well, he's not as bad as Boogie.
The thing is, he's actually really loyal.
Yeah. And he's really smart.
Yeah.
He's extremely smart. There's a scene of him watching like a quiz show, and he can answer all. It's like sitting there watching Jeopardy and answering all the questions.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Groundhog's Day.
He plays a lot of practical jokes. He's like kind of this nervy. He just has no direction.
He also doesn't want to admit that he's smart too. 'Cause
Yeah.
the one guy says like, "Have you ever opened a book?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And he obviously has, but he doesn't want to admit that he has.
And he's definitely a type of person. Like I've known people like that.
They're frustrating.
They're very frustrating people.
And the thing is that like I feel like I've known people like this, and they do eventually.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
That's
If they don't die, they
Yeah.
do.
And and we mentioned Paul Reiser as Modell, and he's kind of a peripheral. Like he's he's always there at the diner with them, and he does like, but like they don't really give him much of a to do in that, which is fine because it is a little weird. Paul Reiser has never been young, and so he feels like the old man in the group,
Yeah.
and that actually kind of works because often a group will have that guy who is a little bit older than everybody else, and it works here.
And usually the older guy doesn't have all the drama that the young people do.
No, and so he doesn't have it here, and that actually makes a lot of sense. That's a really good observation.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's probably perfectly happy in his life, and he goes and hangs out with them at the diner, and that's a perfectly good and normal way to be.
And you need someone to rile up Eddie.
Who deserves it.
He really does.
Oh, Eddie. So Eddie, not only is he like giving the girl this stupid quiz because he's afraid to get married and whatnot, but he still lives with his mother in this big suburban house, and he sleeps until like 3:00 in the afternoon, and then he gets into these, to me, unimaginable fights with his mother. Although you get the sense that like they're used to this, to the point where like she's holding a knife and he's like, "Yeah, please stab me," and I'm just like, I've never lived in a family like this. Like this is,
And Billy is there. He's not even moving. He's like, "Oh, this again."
So you've got Billy, like I'm in love with this girl and she's pregnant thing. And there's a great scene where like they're having a conversation in like a booth at the.
Oh, that was really cool.
Like it was just really nicely shot. I really like the cinematography in that.
But also like so they're at a booth in a TV station and a movie is playing over it.
Yeah.
And every now and then the movie, like the things happening in the movie are like reflecting what they're. It's great.
There's a lot of stuff with that in this. There's a lot of use of movies in this, which I like.
Yeah.
This is definitely a movie about people who love movies.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't really comment on it, it just uses it. They go to the movie theater a lot in this. Actually, this kind of took me out of the film for a second. There's one scene where I think it's Steve Guttenberg, Eddie and Billy, I think it is, go to see The Seventh Seal.
Right.
This bothered me. Not because they went to go see it, but because the marquee of the theater says Bergman Classic. Or,
I thought it said New Bergman Classic.
Did it say New Bergman Classic?
I thought it did.
Maybe I missed the word new. But the thing is, I'm watching this, I'm like, wait a minute, that movie was only like 2 years old. Who's deciding this is a classic already? I mean, look, did it make a huge impact on film culture? Absolutely. But I just found the wording just like, this is definitely looking backwards and deciding, this is a huge moment.
I'd love to know if that actually did happen, if like they were calling it a classic right away.
That's a really good question.
Because like it does have a classic quality and stuff.
Like it's been parodied so many times, referenced so many times. Hell, bring back the podcast Weekend at Bergman's. It named a podcast that sadly hasn't made a new episode in a long time.
Well, they're doing some kind of
the watch along party. Yeah, I haven't
At least
been able.
there's that.
It's usually like conflicting with something that I have going on, so I haven't been able to catch up with that. But
Brett's busy.
Brett Boehm is a very busy guy. Like there were 2 instances in this movie where I was just like, oh, I wonder if they're getting their timeline wrong or if this is intentional. Because the other one is Eddie is talking about the honeymoon and he's like, yeah, we're going to go to Cuba. It's going to be great. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is
December 1959.
December 59. The Communist Revolution ended a year ago.
Yeah.
Like I've watched Godfather 2 many times. I'm very familiar with what date Cuba became communist. Eddie, what are you talking about? You can't. I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this was like just a mistake on Levinson's part or if Eddie's really dumb. I mean, I get the feeling Eddie's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Column A, column B.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, movies. So the other big movie scene in this. So because you brought up the TV playing movies, and there's a couple of places where there's movies playing in the background, but the other one, Boogie's a terrible person, right?
This is the Porky's scene. of
This is
movie,
the
which is what the studio wanted.
wait, what?
The studio really wanted it. They were like, it's not Porky's. Like, well, that's not going to sell tickets.
Wait, they wanted Diner to be a Porky's movie?
Oh yeah.
You know, at some point we're going to cover Porky's.
Yep.
Because I've never actually seen it, but its reputation definitely precedes itself. You know, a bit like a shockwave. I can't. Oh God! If Porky's is 90 minutes of guys putting their dicks in popcorn boxes, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do that, but we will. Yeah. So that's what happens. His whole Mickey Rourke, Boogie. His whole thing is he's trying to get this girl. He bets the other guys he's gonna get this girl.
He's betting all the time. He's betting.
He's a compulsive gambler.
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon is an alcoholic. He's a compulsive gambler. They live in cinder block walls. I mean, it looks very cozy. Anyway, so he bets the other guys that he's going to get this girl to, basically give him a hand job in the theater. And there's a whole bunch of other people in that theater. This is not an empty theater. This would definitely get you arrested now. I don't know about back then, but this would absolutely get you arrested now. And so what he does is, because he's just like, I'll get her to, basically to at the very least touch it.
Yeah.
So he tricks her. It's one of those popcorn boxes that that you
Folds up to the
folds
bottom.
in the bottom. That it's like when you don't get the big bucket, you get this smaller one. So he basically just forces it through the bottom, and there's popcorn on it, and as you have this whole sequence of they're in the movie theater watching A Summer Place, which is interesting in and of itself, and I'll get back to that in a second, but she's eating popcorn, and so everybody's just the audience, us, are just waiting for that moment because we see him pull down his fly and arrange it.
And the whole reason he did this is so that he has witnesses for the bet.
Yeah, to prove that he did get her to touch it.
Yeah.
And eventually she eats enough popcorn that, hey, that ain't popcorn.
Right.
And she kind of just screams and jumps up and runs for the women's room, and then he immediately follows her. Now, I have a couple questions. One, how did he do that, follow her so quickly? Because he's got to remove the popcorn, put his penis back into his underwear, zip up, and then follow her. That seems like a lot to do without, I don't know, injuring yourself, maybe, like paper cuts.
It depends on the pants.
Well...
and chances are he's done this before.
Oh, I'm sure he's done this many times to many girls. I'm thinking
he's practiced.
He's a practiced pervert.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, I mean, look, you're a guy. I'm not asking whether you would ever do this because I know you, but can you imagine just the sensation of that? That's got to be kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Like whether you have an erection or not, it's gotta be a weird feeling, right? Like butter. And the butter's by then probably not even warm anymore.
No.
Like, can you just ew?
Well, betting, if you're gonna get money.
I can't imagine there's enough money. And this isn't even talking about the fact that this is like unwanted sexual contact, right?
Right.
Like, don't do that. That's gross. This is highly cancelable actions. Don't ew, man. What the hell? That's so gross. And in this it's kind of played for laughs. Okay. God, it's a different world back then.
I think once the studio heard about this scene, they're like, make this movie. And they thought the whole movie would be that.
Yeah. No, the rest of the movie is the opposite of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. They oh God. Boogie's not a good person. Yeah. But anyway, so they're watching A Summer Place, and I found that interesting because Summer Place, I don't know if it's a great film, but a lot of it is about...
Is this Douglas Sirk? It sure looks like a Douglas Sirk.
No, it's Delmer Daves, or Davis, or I'm not entirely sure how you say it. But no, I understand why you thought it was Douglas Sirk. So it's this movie where a lot of it is about adults being very weird about sex, and it kind of breaking their kids' minds. The prudishness and the remove of the parents from their lives, and in that movie, the father's an alcoholic and the mother is so prudish that she basically tortures her daughter for having any sort of sexuality at all. And yeah, I think I don't know. I think it's an interesting movie. And it's from like the late 50s.
Yeah.
And so, you have this dialogue going on in the background about, sex being dirty or not. And I think it's interesting that he put it, not just because of that particular scene. So it's kind of this like gross joking counterpoint to what's happening in there. But I think within the context of the rest of the movie, it's actually kind of interesting because as we brought up, what is a relationship beyond sex, and how do you, relationships have to be built on more than that if you want to be their partner. In that film, it's about these kids' lives, almost being destroyed by this woman being so neurotic about sex. And this movie has a relationship between two people who's not suited to each other, and they are only together because they were trying to have sex a lot. And this was the easiest way to do it, was to get married. This is not what you build a relationship on. And the movie knows that. And so I thought it interesting that like they have this scene from A Summer Place, actually a couple of scenes like kind of playing in the background. And like I don't want to say it's in the wrong scene necessarily because it's the popcorn joke scene. But I do find it interesting that they were like kind of bouncing off of that movie. So there is a scene with Dalen Stern and his wife played by Ellen Barkin where and it really gets into like just how they can't really live together and they don't have the same interests necessarily, where there's just this one little domestic scene where he's going through his records and he just flips out because one record wasn't put back in the right place. And he just starts getting at her, quizzing her, like, how do I like my records arranged? She's just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Alphabetical by the artist and then chronological, and he's like, right, but you didn't do it right. Because he's like, first of all, you didn't alphabetize it by the last name and you didn't put it by genre. So he gets really angry that his James Brown record is mixed in with under J in the rock and roll section and not under R&B. And, he goes on this whole rant at her and he's just getting like more and more angry and red-faced about it. And this is, on the one hand, this is obviously just him sublimating his own, like, I don't really, we shouldn't be together type thing. So he's finding a reason to be angry. But on the other hand, I think he actually does believe that he has the right system in place and you have to follow it because otherwise, how is he going to find his records? And this is very important to him. And he just screams at her because like at one point he mentions like Charlie Parker and she's just like, well, who's Charlie Parker? And he freaks out to the point where she's just got like she has to leave the house.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this scene and I'm deeply uncomfortable.
Because it's like an argument between the two sides of your head.
Yes, it is. Because on the one hand, when my house is in order, and it's not in order because we moved, but when my house is in order, I do like to have my records set up by alphabetical order, chronologically, and by genre. So that, yes, all of my rock records are together. And then you have, like, all of the jazz records are by themselves, and the blues records are by themselves, and the classical records. Yes, I do that. I absolutely do that. I have the exact same system as this nerd. Here's the thing. If I find the record in the wrong place, have I ever yelled at you?
I don't remember.
I would hope you'd remember a scene like this.
Actually, I don't remember our records being that organized. I have so many records.
That's true.
It's just...
Well, that's the thing. Like, the records that were mine were organized. The records that were, like, your dad's, we've never had the space to organize. No. But, if we ever have the space, they will... Oh, trust me, they're going to get nice and... Yeah, you're going to be able to find everything very easily. Look, I used to work in a library.
Yeah.
Like, this is very normal to me. But here's the thing. I wouldn't scream at you for putting it back in the wrong place.
Right.
But he has this thing where he's just like, music is so important to him, right? And on the one hand, I absolutely believe it. I do believe that music is really important to him. At the same time, I don't think that's entirely what's important to him, is it? It's having control over something is important.
I feel like it's just being 20 or however old he is. Like,
yeah.
I feel like it's things seem to mean so much at that moment. It's like, I guess, kind of control over yourself or something, or knowing yourself, and like your identity, and like your identity means so much at that moment.
Yeah, that's true. And you don't even entirely know what your identity is because you're so young. You don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
At the same time, you don't have to be cruel the way he's cruel to her in this. So anyway, so there is a subplot where, she finds some comfort in going to Boogie, and like he ends up trying to use her in order to win another bet, but luckily calls it off in time, before they're caught. But so yeah, he kind of starts not leading her along exactly, but he's manipulative. you know,
Who, Boogie?
Boogie, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so like they get up to the line of having an affair. And thankfully it doesn't happen. But unfortunately it doesn't happen in part because he's like, oh, you really should try to work it out with Daniel Stern's character. And I'm just sitting there like, no, she shouldn't. You know, not unless he puts in a hell of a lot of work and changes as a person. Yeah, it's interesting just watching these different relationships and what the movie says about like why people should be together. And obviously the people who should be together then, you know, the best, the most mature couple in that way is not the couple who are married, who got married way too young and for the wrong reasons, but it's Tim Daly and the woman at the television station. By the end of the film, like we said, you know, Eddie tries to call it off and then, you know, rethinks it. Like, I'm not entirely sure what exactly gets him over it. I don't know if it's him and Tim Daly going to the strip club and playing music or whatever, but, you know, if at some point, you know, he, you know, decides to get married anyway. And, you know, there's like, and again, the film is just like a series of vignettes. At one point, you know, Fenwick, Kevin Bacon is drunk outside of a church and kids stole the baby Jesus. So he takes off all his clothes and crawls into the crush and is, you know, the guys are trying to convince him to, you know, come back out again, at which point they all get arrested. And
All right, I've been hearing the word crush.
Crush. It's French.
I never heard it before 2 days ago.
Weren't you raised Catholic?
Yeah, but I never heard that. Or maybe I've heard that word and I had no idea what people were saying.
Yeah.
Creche.
A creche.
I never heard it.
Jeez, dude. Really? Okay, so do you know what a creche is?
I assume it's a nativity scene.
It's a nativity scene. Yes, absolutely.
Context clues.
Yeah, it does help. Yeah. So yes, he crawled into a nativity scene outside of a
and
church.
then punches all of the wise men statues.
Which is pretty great. Actually, that like the scene with the nativity set is really great. Actually, when the cops show up and stuff, and they yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the element of this movie that is sort of like half Jewish, half Catholic, and I don't know. I kind of identified a lot with that. Not the Jewish part necessarily, although I grew up knowing a lot of Jewish people, but definitely the Catholic part of it.
But
Catholic
it just seems like Irish Catholics and Jews were kind of meant to hang out together.
Yeah. Well, the guilt levels are off the charts.
But they're different kinds of guilt.
They are very different kinds of guilt, but they're very real kinds of guilt. And
it's like the exact same amount, but it's like in different pots.
Yes. But also, like, I don't know, there's something about like Baltimore as a city is very similar to Philadelphia. To the point where we actually have the same accent, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, watching this, there was something very, oddly, like, nostalgic for me of, like, just growing up in Philly as a kid. Even though, like, this is, you know, a little bit, they've got a little bit more money than when I did growing up. But, yeah, I don't know. There was something kind of, I enjoyed about that. Like, it just felt very, like, oh, I'm home again watching that. I don't know. Plus, like, just going to a diner the whole time, you know, like that felt very close to home. And also Kevin Bacon is from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
In fact, I can play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
You can?
I can. Do you want to know why?
Sure.
My Aunt Teresa used to be the woman who kind of ran the parish at St. Patrick's downtown off of Rittenhouse Square. Like, I forget what they call it, but, you know, the Monsignor was like the head priest, and then she like ran all the business side of everything, whatever you want to call it, you know. And so Ed Bacon was the parishioner of that church.
Huh.
Ed Bacon, for those who don't know, is Kevin Bacon's father. And he's also like, was the major city planner of Philadelphia in the middle of the 20th century. He was a very important guy in Philadelphia. Huh. But he was a member of the parish. And so my aunt knew Ed Bacon.
So that's 2 degrees?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
I don't know how it works. Yeah. So it's kind of funny watching this, and like, you know, a lot of the actors, they've got New York accents, like kind of in the background. I'm just like, that accent's not right, except for Kevin Bacon. And I'm like,
Bagel.
And Bagel, yeah.
Who like was hired just because of his accent, because he's from Baltimore.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's interesting watching this and just being like, some of these people, their accents are not correct, but that's fine. People outside of the area don't know.
Right.
Whatever.
Apparently, Mickey Rourke did not enjoy working in this film.
Oh, yeah?
Because he said, I don't like comedies. And I feel like it's partly because like he's probably not good at improv. I get that feeling. And I just feel like he wanted to be, I feel like he really wanted to be Sonny Corleone in The Godfather.
Really?
I just get that vibe from him. Like
Huh.
he just wants to be like that's the character he wants to play all the time.
I didn't avoid this movie or anything. Like, I just never got around to watching it. Now, you avoided watching this.
Yeah, just because like it just did not seem for me when I was a teenager when it was because this is 1982,
Right.
so I'm 11 when it comes out.
Well, yeah.
and then it's in cable and like when I'm like 16 and I'm like yeah,
This is not a movie for teenagers.
no.
No.
So I would not have gotten it. And then like by the time I'm in like 20s, like it's like I wanted nothing to do with like 80s films that weren't like Aliens.
Watching it as an adult and like a middle-aged adult and looking back, like I think it resonates a lot better and I think it's a much richer film.
The thing is like this is kind of it's almost not a movie.
Okay.
I mean, like it seems like it would work just as well as a play,
Yes.
or a TV show,
Yeah.
or you know, like a limited, TV show.
They actually even tried to make a TV. They did a pilot,
Yeah.
and Paul
With
Reiser,
Paul Reiser,
Paul
yeah.
Reiser was in it, and they replaced Mickey Rourke with Michael Madsen, which
I can see.
actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And I forget who took on the Kevin Bacon role. Somebody else who you kind of went, oh yeah, okay, that tracks.
Sure.
But yeah, no, they actually, and yes, you can totally see how this could easily have been made into a TV show. It didn't go anywhere, but no, that makes sense. And like, yeah, again, it's vignettes, and
Apparently, the whole reason it exists or got released was because of Pauline Kael.
yeah,
Like, because the studio was like, "This is not Porky's. This is not going to make us money. Like, let's just get rid of it or something." And Pauline Kael was shown a cut of it.
Right.
And said, if you release it, me and other reviewers will give it a high review because it's great.
and it is. It is. Just one more thing. I just want to once again thank listener of the show, Todd Gruel, for suggesting it to us. And yeah, this was a great movie. I'm really glad we watched it.
Yeah, it was great.
Come into my heart. No, darling, we will never part. I need you, darling, so come go with me. Yeah!
So that was Diner, starring Steve Guttenberg, Daniel Stern, Mickey Rourke, Kevin Bacon, Tim Daly, Ellen Barkin, Paul Reiser, Michael Tucker. That's Bagel, who you brought up. Written and directed by Barry Levinson. Yes, you can follow us on social media. We are Mary vs. Movies on all of the major platforms except for Tumblr, where we are Mary versus the Movies. So if you go onto Instagram, if you go onto Twitter or whatever we're calling it now, if you go onto Mastodon, it's at mas.to. If you go onto Blue Sky, everywhere, we are Mary vs. Movies. We're on TikTok now. Dennis, when he has time, we have not had time lately. We've been working very long hours. But when Dennis has time, he makes short animations of our like snippets of the show and stuff, and they're very funny. And I think my favorite one right now is the little bit from King Arthur. Like that's so good. I love it so much. Where I kill you with an arrow. Twang. We have a newsletter which you can get for free. Then it's just us again talking about the movie and reviewing other stuff that we've been watching. And Dennis reviews pizza, which is fun. And so to get that, you either are signed up to our Patreon, which we'll get to in a second, or you can just email us, contact us somehow. Our email is maryvsmovies@gmail.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter, or you can write to us with any comments, complaints, or suggestions, and we would love to hear from you. But yes, we have a Patreon as well, and there you, for $3 a month, you can help support the show, because the show does cost money. We have server costs every month. We have a Zoom account. We're going to start having guests again. So we need the Zoom account, believe it or not. I know, because you haven't heard anybody on here for a little while, but the end of the year is always tough with us at work, so we don't really get to schedule people on here. But yeah, so anyway, $3 a month, you help support the show, and you get access to our secondary podcast, Hollywood Avalon, where we watch movies of an Arthurian bent, i.e. Things like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, First Night, What else? That horrible 2004 King Arthur movie that I really, really despise. And but also we watched a bunch of Bugs Bunny cartoons. That's fun.
It was fun.
And hopefully at the end of this month, we will release an episode on the movie The Green Knight from a couple years ago, which is David Lowery's take on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
I'm fascinated by your opinion changing on this.
Yeah, I don't know. Now that I think about it, I'm
just saying, when we started the podcast, when we started Hollywood Avalon, like that was like top 3, like
well, the more
King Arthur movie.
The more I think about what it does in the end, the more annoyed I get. So, anyway, so yes, if you sign up for the Patreon for $3 a month, you get access to this second podcast. It comes out once a month, and that's we really enjoy making that show. Anyway, and unlike this show, on that show, I've sometimes seen the movie already, so I do come in kind of prepared. Not always though. Sometimes we watch something I've never seen before, like First Night, and get incredibly disappointed.
Marry with the movie instead of marry against the movie.
No, in First Night it was definitely marry against the movie. So anyway, yes. All right. Next episode. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be January. Do you know what popped into my head as soon as I thought of that?
Empire Strikes Back.
No, because first of all, Dennis, how many times have I seen Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, you've seen it?
With you. More than once. The next movie will be Misery. The Rob Reiner version of Stephen King, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So believe it or not, I'm familiar with Misery. I've never actually sat and watched it.
I've never watched it, but I have read the book. So
okay, well that's good. That'll be interesting. So yeah, our next episode will be on the movie Misery.
Is this our second Stephen King?
God, I think we've done more. No, it's not, because
we did Maximum Overdrive.
Dead Zone. Dead Zone was a Stephen King. So I guess this is at least the third one, if not more.
Because I know we want to do Christine at some point.
We do want to do Christine. Yeah. I've got a couple of John Carpenter movies to work through. So yes, our next episode will be Misery. All right. So until next time.
You know what word I'm not comfortable with? Nuance.